Now, the Bram Weinstein Show on Washington's new home for sports, ESPN 630.
Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
How's it going?
Happy Monday. What's up, everybody?
Good Father's Day?
I had a great one.
Nice.
I got to do what I like to do, which is just sit around and cook all day. That's my
okay.
thing.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm a 51-year-old man. That's what I do now. So we had a bunch of people, we have family in town, so we had a bunch of people over at our house. And I made a smoked pastrami, and this one was good. Last time I posted a picture of like one of my creations, people made fun of me.
You did get roasted a little
I
bit.
got roasted.
Yes.
They were like, it's dry. I'm like, well, screw you. Okay, I'm trying here. I'm not going to win any championships, but I'm trying very hard. I brined this thing for a week. I smoked it for 9 hours. Give me a break if it's not perfect. Jerks. Anyway, so I didn't this time, but this one was amazing. So good that the whole thing is gone.
Wow,
I planned on bringing you some today
Yeah.
because it was so good, but it was gone by the end of the night.
Hey, there's,
so I'll
there's
make
worse
another
problems.
one.
Any sides? Any side action there?
Let's see. Well, I
Did you
did. Yeah, we had help for the sides.
Say
I
Archer
did
usually
the,
helps you with that, right? Doesn't
Yeah, he likes to help out. He made a Brazilian lemonade. That was Archer's
What?
move. Yeah.
What is it? What makes it lemonade Brazilian?
You blend whole limes.
Oh, okay.
And
Oh, yeah, I have seen this.
Sweetened
actually.
condensed milk.
Yeah. Now and
And then you strain out, so that it's not
Yes.
pulp,
Yes.
and it's skin of a lime, and it's delicious.
Yeah,
so Archer's into that.
The blending of a whole lemon or lime is actually something I discovered last year, and it's a game changer. It's a game changer.
It was very good.
Cool.
Heather made sides. Family brought over desserts and other sides. I made 2 smoked chickens.
Wow. Oh, look at
Because
you.
we had some non-meat eaters, so non-red
red
meat,
meat
not
eaters,
red
yeah,
meat eaters.
sure.
And I had the pastrami, which was a hit, so I'm happy. I made homemade Russian dressing for the thing. I made homemade pickles.
You went out.
Oh, I went all out.
You went
for
all
this
out.
whole
Homemade
thing.
pickles. What kind
Homemade
of pickles? What kind of pickles
like
you
a spicy kosher dill pickle.
Okay. All right.
And they I'm very proud of all this. I like making things that take a week before you're allowed to eat it. Pickles
Some
have to be
patience.
at least a week.
Yeah.
I put labels on them like don't touch this until this date
okay.
because they were going.
Have you ever
into
gone
it.
the other vegetable pickling route, like carrots or anything else?
Not yet, but I'm
good.
thinking about it.
It's a good idea.
I'll do it.
Carrots is like an easy one.
I'll do
'cause
it.
They're so cheap too.
I'm pumped about the pastrami because it was actually like moist, which is like that was the killer last time. But the thing smoked for 9 hours and it came out perfect.
Nice.
And I didn't overspice it this time,
Okay,
so I was
all right.
like, I feel very good
You
about
were
myself.
batting
today.
1,000 on Sunday.
Batting 1,000.
Yeah.
I was really happy with myself by the end of the day, and it was just lovely. My kids are lovely, so it was nice to have Father's Day
Nice.
with them.
There you
So it
go.
was
Any
good.
gifts? Any gifts? Can I?
I don't ask for them, so I didn't
Okay.
get it.
All right.
Actually, I did. It was a combo. My wife gave a combo. Archer's graduating from elementary school. Father's Day ping pong table.
Oh,
but a good one.
Look at that.
Like a nice one, a Stiga black
Wow.
ping pong
Okay.
table. So we had a lot of tournaments going on
Got
yesterday.
it. Very nice.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Everybody was into that, so that was nice. And because she's a designer, she gets all these discounts, so we got it for like nothing.
There you
so
go.
It was like perfect gift.
It was music.
No
to your
room in my
ears.
basement anymore.
I was
my
gonna say,
my
where'd you fit
room's
that?
becoming a game room, but that's fine. We have a Pop-A-Shot, we have an air hockey table, now we have a ping pong table. So there's nowhere to actually stand. Like you're forced to play
No
something.
wonder all the parties are at your house.
Yeah. We had a high school party.
Yep.
We had Father's Day party. But our house you've been to my house.
Yes.
It's kind of built for that.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Our house was a swingers house back in the day.
Well, I was
That's
gonna-
not the kind of party. Like, obviously, that's not the kind of parties we're having now. But all my neighbors like to make fun of us because
Right.
everyone knows
So
that that's the
renowned.
thing. Yeah. And this is how tragically uncool I am. No one thinks we're going to have a swingers party at my house now. That's why it's turned into an arcade.
There's nothing wrong with.
There's nothing wrong with that.
was like,
It's
you
a
want
little
that
like,
reputation?
I don't. And then there's part of me
It's a
that
weird
goes,
conversation.
I do want people to think I'm cool. And there's nobody comes over and they're like, this used to be the thing. It's always used to be the swingers house. I'm like, yeah, it used to be. It's got a steam bath, a disco, had this crazy pool that we got rid of in the back.
Has the
and
coolest
stuff.
wall I've ever seen in a house.
The disco room?
Yeah.
It's the one room we haven't messed with because we're all kind of like, it's so
It's a
nostalgic.
timepiece. It's should be in a museum.
It's a purple shag couch built into the wall.
It's insane.
And everybody's asked the same thing, like, do you sit on it? And we're like, oh no. We don't know what happened on that
You
couch.
should do the UV light one day.
No, I don't even want to know. I don't want to know. So it's a different house now, but it's a fun house. We've made it a fun house.
Yes.
So it's a
Yes.
party house. It
Nice.
was fun. We had a good time. All right, let me get to news of the day, which is Brandon Aiyuk has a FaceTime call with Jaden Daniels.
Mm-hmm.
You'll recall they were teammates at Arizona State before Aiyuk went pro, and then Daniels transferred a couple years later to LSU, but they were teammates once upon a time.
Yep.
And there was a funny clip I saw in draft preparation of Daniels throwing a pass to Aiyuk to beat Justin Herbert's Oregon team, which I thought was really funny to see that, right? And so they're close, obviously, because they've done a lot of calls together, and then they post some of them. And Aiyuk posted a clip of this on TikTok, and his clip in the quote in it is the 49ers do not want me back. Now he's not specific about that because John Lynch has made it clear they do.
Right.
At this price for
right.
one more year. He's playing on a 5th-year option. It pays him under $15 million a year. That's about half of what he's looking for at an annual value. Whether he would get $30 million a year is a question, but he's got a right to ask for much more than 15 for sure. It's definitely in the 25 million and up range for sure. Is it top of the class? Well, that's eye of the beholder, I suppose. And the 49ers currently don't want to give him that, and they want him to play, I think, on this one-year deal. But he said they don't want me back, and everyone's trying to figure out what do you mean by that? Because they didn't trade you. They want you to play on this one-year deal, and then they're going to figure it out. And just knowing how things go, most people don't turn down $14 million, so I think he's stuck. The draft is gone. We're past mini camp. Camp is coming around. I can't imagine the 49ers think it's a good idea to trade him now, but considering he said it, and everyone assumes that, then this will be his last year, or they'll franchise him, he's gone one way or the other if they're not going to give him that price tag. And he's saying it to Jaden Daniels, who's his friend, and we here all agree that one more prime receiver would kind of fit the bill for the Commanders.
Yeah.
Well, we're back in that conversation again.
I also think the timing of this is interesting, considering we heard, I think it was on Friday, that T. Higgins is now going to play on the 1 year.
He'll play on the Texans. The same thing's happening there.
Right, and it's
They have a similar problem. Debo makes a ton of money. Chase is making a ton of money.
Yep.
Chase is their number one.
Yep.
I would argue Aiyuk could make a case that he
yeah.
should be the number one, and Debo would get moved at some point, based mainly on just injury history with Samuel.
Yep.
But so it's different. Like, the Bengals are not getting rid of Jamar Chase, so they got a weird decision to make. Do they pay two receivers top of the market money? I think in the 49ers case, they could argue, dude, settle down, play this out. Let's see where we are next year. Debo may or may not be here. We don't know. And if he's not, you're here.
That's right. Yeah.
So I think it's a different situation, but he's frustrated by the fact that he's not getting paid now. And he is, under his market value for sure for this year, but welcome to the NFL.
Yep.
And, they have the right to do this. So I don't think any trade is coming. Even him saying that and pressuring them a little bit, I don't think a trade is coming. But him saying it to Daniels, who's his friend, is noteworthy for us because clearly he would love for us to give him the money so he could play with his friend here. So noted. Is I think the way out. Noted.
Okay.
Noted.
I mean, here's the good part if you're the Commanders and you're in their position. This is the old worst combo for San Fran. Last year of his deal, and you have to hand him the money on the other side, which means you're not getting a premium for him. You're getting something for him. You're getting a asset, but you're not getting...
Pro Football Talk put it very well, where they said if they were going to trade him, they really should have done it before this draft, because you do get him for one. You can sign him to an extension, but you do get him technically for this year at that price. It's a really good price. And maybe another contender would have liked to have done that.
Correct.
Or the Commanders could have looked at it and said he's part of our long-term future if they wanted to because of how much cap room they had. But they didn't swing for the fences on anybody.
Right.
So I think the timing was wrong for Adam Peters and company to go divvy out a lot of money to somebody because that's what it would have been here.
Sure.
Also, the 49ers would have asked for probably a first-round pick for him because you're getting him at that price. Now... they're kind of in a situation, we've seen this before, when you got to pay the guy, it's rare that you get the top flight asset in return. So the 49ers are kind of in a limbo land with him where you got to choose to either pay him and deal with it because you like him, or take probably something that's less than he's worth because the other team's going to pay him and they don't want to give up something of note. So that then begs this question, which I don't think is happening this summer. Again, I think he's stuck there, and I don't think it's here because I think the Commanders at this point would have swung for the fences for somebody if they were going to, whether it's him or somebody else. I think they could have, because they could have done it.
Yep.
They chose not to. So it would be a major seed change for them to put the money out there.
Right.
And considering how many draft picks they had in the first 3 rounds, it is a touch surprising that they didn't do this in advance when Aiyuk was probably available. But I think it also tells me what I think about him, which is he's a, same thing with T. Higgins, really good player.
Yeah.
Not a P1 top 5 difference making $30 million a year Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, name the ones you like, that are definitive Pro Bowl, game changing, 1,500 to 1,800 yard receivers, unguardable type players. I don't think that's him. I think he's a really, really good player, but not a great one. And you'd have to bring him in and pay him more than McLaurin.
Yeah, right, exactly.
And that, I think, is a little too much to swallow. And if anybody should know this about him, it's Adam Peters.
True. Yeah, exactly.
Who was part of the team that drafted him and have watched him turn into a very, very good receiver.
I think the other part about this, too, is I've made mention, and we've talked about it, is, they turned the roster, upside down like a bully and shook out everything that they don't want anymore. And I'm not saying they would do that with some of the high draft picks, but I think they legitimately are looking at a couple of players and going, let's see what we've got with those guys.
Yes.
One of them happens to be Jahan. And I
agree.
I think they're also waiting to go, you know what? He looks pretty good that first year. Like, there were flashes there that we all were like, whoa, this is okay. Looks like
he's
a first round
also
pick.
year 3 of a rookie deal.
Correct.
So you got time to figure this out with him.
And so I think they're also going, you know what? We could do this, but we might have our Aiyuk right here. And we just don't see it yet, or he hasn't gotten the type of volume that he should to test that out. So
also,
is he going to be Aiyuk? I'm not saying that, but like,
I don't know either.
Yeah, like, let him play it out though, because he showed flashes 2 years ago where we were like, okay, this guy looks like he's got the foundation to be a really good wide receiver.
Yes, and I also think that they have runway.
Yep.
I don't think, they'll never say this out loud, and they shouldn't, that like, we're not ready to take off. I think they're hoping for a very good first season with this group. They have clear holes on their roster. I've argued one of them is depth at primary receiver.
Yep.
That I love McLaurin, and I'm with you on Dotson. I'd like to see him in this offense. And regardless of whether they brought in another receiver of this level, I don't think that changes my feeling about Dotson in the long term. Let's see how it plays out. But they've chosen not to do this literally at any position. They paid Luvu a decent contract. They paid Armstrong a decent contract. They didn't do that with literally anybody else. They didn't go top of the market on literally anybody. And they didn't give anybody a deal that is 4, 5, 6 years spread out, 100 and whatever. They didn't do that.
Right.
So I don't think that the timing was right for them, even if they think this is the right guy to come here. But there is one other thing that does need to be said here. And I talked about this last week when McLaurin spoke, that we're going to find out who Jaden's guy is this year.
Right.
McLaurin is 29 going on 30. I think there's a role here for him no matter what moving forward. And because of the cap room situation that they don't have to not pick up another receiver like this. And this guy really likes this quarterback.
Man.
They already have a relationship. He's in that timeline that I've been talking about where they're of about the same age. Aiyuk's maybe a little bit older, but not much. There's a longer run here. They already have this relationship with one another. And that stuff matters to me.
Right.
Like, that matters to me. Now, can he ascend to be not just a number 1 receiver, but a top tier, very difficult number 1 receiver? That's eye of the beholder. And that's where I would defer to Adam Peters and Newmark and Kingsbury, who coached against him, to say, yes, he is that. Let's do it. Let's explain to McLaurin he's not going anywhere, and it's 1 and 1A, and Jahan will be whatever Jahan is, and hopefully he'll emerge and give us options down the road. But they just clearly didn't want to do that now. This may come up again next year because he is openly complaining. They don't want to give him top of the market money. I think he's stuck. So I think he's going to play there. Like, he's not going to turn it down. Like, he's not going to sit out.
Yeah, right.
And not take, he may, they do hold-ins now where he shows up to camp so he doesn't get fined, but he doesn't do anything just to send the message. And then when push comes to shove, week 1, he's suited up and playing. That's what I think will happen here, because if there was going to be a trade, it would have happened earlier than this, whether it's us or somebody else. So, but at the end of this, we then get to the other side of it. I would think they would franchise him to limit his mobility.
That's right.
Right?
Yep.
If they don't, he's a free agent, and that's a whole different conversation.
That's right.
Now you're giving up nothing
Correct,
to actually
exactly.
go sign him, but most teams don't do that for valuable players, and he is one of
Yep.
them. So, but that puts them in a weird situation, because if they do franchise him, he does get top 5 money,
That's right.
and then he's sitting at that point. But let's see where we are after this. I think this is just notable too. Let's just see where we are after this year and see how the 49ers feel about him after this year. And then when push comes to shove, when we have a lot of cap room again going into next year, because we have a lot of young players, or we have a lot of players that are on 1-year kind of show me deals on this team, but nobody's eating up a ton of the cap. And there's even room to be had if you want to restructure McLaurin, if you want to restructure John Allen. Like, there's a lot of room to actually maneuver with the few big contracts that are on this team. This is noted for next January, February, when if he's in the same feeling of they don't want me back, I want to go somewhere else, then we'll find, and let's see how the season goes, because if we are teetering on Houston-ish, 500, hopefully a little bit better than that, sneak into the playoffs maybe, or just miss something like that, and we're feeling like this thing's about to take off, and okay, we got the cap room, let's go after it, then he's a name that I would watch here. Let's see who's available, but that's a name to watch. The larger question will be, do you think he should get top 5 money? You know, maybe not the Jefferson deal, but not far from it.
Right.
I mean, Miami just did this with Jalen Waddle. I think it's the same thing. Tyreek Hill's their number 1, but they paid him.
Yep.
They gave him a ton of money as the number 2. That's how I kind of look at Aiyuk, and we'll have to see if the Commanders feel the same way. But the relationship is there, and that's why I'm like kind of taking this in and going, maybe, because I think if you went to Daniels and said, do you want him back? Well, they're buddies.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Of course they do.
Yeah.
Is he a good performer? Yeah, he has shown it on a really good team, but he's shown it. I think he's a very good player. But you have to then decide, okay, we're going to pay a premium for the relationship that's already built. Yep. And so, noted. I'm watching this.
I think the other side of this, too, though, is, you know, I agree with you. He's not the top guy, right? He's not
at
one
all.
He's not one of those guys, a 1A type, right? But I
But
will
he's
say,
very good.
right? And I will say this: we've never seen Terry with anyone even with that on the other side,
Correct.
Or him with someone like Terry with Jahan as him behind them. So like, it is almost also an argument to be made there of you could make the trade and pay him because it's going to open things up for everyone else on the offense as well.
100%.
Like as a unit, all of a sudden. Who wants to go up against those 3 guys on the field at the same exact time? Then, oh, by the way, you just hand it off to one of the running backs that they have.
Yeah.
You know, like it does open things up. So I also think you got to, you know, sometimes zoom out on it and go, you know what? You're paying a lot for maybe not a number 1 wide receiver of the caliber that we're talking about, but it puts the unit, the whole entire offense over the top in a way that you kind of, you know, I don't know if you're going to have that luxury next year.
That's right. So if we all agree that the positions of need for the here and now that probably won't be dealt with, but in next year are, and I think in this order, left tackle, edge rusher, unless Jamin turns into that, which, you know, I don't want to put too much pressure on him. I think they're giving him a shot to do it, but he's asked really to change his position. So I think, like, let's see how that goes. I think I love the idea of it because I think it is potentially in his skill set, but he's never been that before. So I don't want to, like, put too much pressure on him. But, okay, so let's just say they still need it. They needed a primary edge rusher opposite of Armstrong. They definitely need a left tackle. They probably need a number 1 corner unless things go really well with this group. And that might actually solve a problem if this group turns into that. But on paper, and just the way it looks to me, I think a primary corner is something they're going to have to watch, and then a wide receiver. Think about those positions for a minute. Outside of quarterback, those are the expensive ones. To get a premier left tackle, if you're not going to draft him, well, that's a $25 to $30 million expense.
Yep.
You want a primary edge rusher? Those guys are the most expensive defensive players you can get. You want a top-tier corner? Well, you're going to pay the price. So it's not like linebacker or running back where you can actually get a deal for those guys. Like you can get, like, the Eagles got Saquon Barkley. He may turn out to be the best player on their offense. He's making a third of what A.J. Brown is making. Like, this isn't, our needs are expensive needs. So how do they address it? Well, if they draft their edge rusher or left tackle, well, you got that person on a rookie contract.
Right.
In the same way you should think about quarterback, these premier positions, if you can get the premier position on a rookie contract, it saves you a ton of cap space. So let's just say they draft a left tackle, which it feels like they have to do. Okay, so they go and do that. Settled, right?
Sure.
Maybe they want to make some other change on the offensive line, but it's not as expensive as that, right? Edge rusher is going to be an interesting one. Maybe the collective group turns out to be a little bit better and they don't need to go get their Micah Parsons, but maybe they do, right? Or corner works out really well. Well, then I think you can do this.
Yeah.
If you have to go buy the left tackle or buy the edge rusher, I'm going to have a hard time buying. You're then going to give $30 million a year to Aiyuk. But if your team is built to eat it and not strap you because you've covered premier positions in a different way through the draft, mainly, then I'll hear an argument about it.
Sure.
That's where I'll hear the argument about it.
Yeah.
But if the same thing happens in the draft where they're just a little too low to get the right guy, well, then they're getting one.
Yeah, right.
Like, there's no chance this is happening again next year. They're getting a left tackle one way or the other, unless the guy out of TCU, the third-round pick, turns into it. And that would be the blessing of the year.
Of course, yeah.
If that guy turns into a starting caliber left tackle as a third-round pick, then the world is their oyster next year. If the corners that they have turn into players they can feel really good about for another season beyond this, then they can do this.
Yeah.
But if they can't land the tackle like it happened this year in the draft, or they just can't get enough pressure off the edge, so they've got to go get somebody to do it, well, then I think it's going to be hard for them to do that deal. So I think there's a lot going on here, but I'm going to watch this because he clearly is so close to Jaden Daniels that if he were to go somewhere else, it's so obvious he would love to do it here. The question is, do they value him like that? Do they value the relationship? And how much do they value it?
Sure.
$30 million a year value it?
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see.
No, I mean, it's also funny to see the fan base lose their minds a little bit about them clamoring them to do it. And it's kind of like, guys, like,
it's not now.
There's so many holes too. Let's not
There
rush
is.
to get a luxury on this roster.
And there's
like,
and it's not now. And the 49ers also aren't going to do it now.
Right.
If they were going to do it, they would have done it before the draft.
Was it
when
Mike
they could have got a
Silver?
real asset for
Was it
him.
Mike Silver saying that the only time it's going to be in play is at the deadline, and even then it was
Maybe.
like,
but that would be if the 49ers for some reason have a bad year,
right.
which who's anticipating that?
Right, exactly.
They'll sell him off if for some reason they're 3-6.
right. If Purdy goes down or something,
Who in the world sees that coming
Right.
with their roster? They don't. And like they don't have anybody better than him. So it's not like they've got all these receivers waiting in the wings. Now, they did draft one at the end of the first round. So they're preparing for, I think Silver put it, it's going to be a war of the worlds between him and Debo to who stays beyond this season. And that's going to need to play out. Because if they decide that Samuel's the one that's going to go, they'll probably pay him.
Yes. Right.
Probably.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a lot of moving parts here.
Yeah. No, I think that's what he literally said, was like, if they sign Aiyuk, then Debo's getting traded, and they'll get something for Debo. Somebody will make a move for him.
They're not, just because he's upset, they're not going to trade him to us for a 4th-round pick.
That's right. Yes.
Like, see, that's not going to. They would have done that, but teams would have lined up to do that before the draft if that's what they were going to do. So I think we're in a holding pattern with this. He's not alone in this. A lot of players have this gripe. He's in a holding pattern, but he's going to have to play for them, and it's in his best interest to play as well as he did a year ago. Otherwise, his value goes down.
Right.
So let's see in January, February what that looks like.
Yeah.
And we'll take a quick break. Bram, watch the show, ESPN 630 Sports Capital. And we have an update on RFK, which is an interesting one from Eric Flack, who's been covering all the stadium news for WUSA and was all over Ted Land in his monumental opportunity as well. And he wrote this one today. The D.C. government denied WUSA's open records request for release of section of taxpayer-funded sports economic impact study, which examined ways that D.C. could help finance the new Commanders football stadium, claiming disclosure would, quote, result in substantial harm to their competitive position. So I don't know enough about open records law to know whether that's allowed.
Right. Yeah.
So I need someone who understands, a lawyer who understands the Open Records Act as to whether that's a valid reason not to allow them to see this. Sounds like at this point they won't. And right now it doesn't matter because Senator Daines and the rest of them have not actually voted it through committee to get to the floor of the House. It's June.
Yeah.
They're going to go on break soon.
That's
they
right.
go for a
Yep.
summer break.
Exactly.
Then they're going to come back. We're in an election cycle.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully this will get voted on by the Senate. Hopefully it will pass. Hopefully it will go to the White House. Hopefully Joe Biden will sign it. And then then it's in the hands of the district government to do what they want to do.
Yep.
But so we're still a couple steps away. And the way this is kind of crawling the last couple of weeks, I don't know if Senator Daines is holding this up because he wanted this meeting with the family about the old logo, or if it's just not on the docket for them at this point, or whatever it is. But it's been slow. And I don't know enough, again, about the Open Records Act to know whether WUSA can then claim, but you got to give it to us, and what legal standing they would have to get it. But the D.C. government doesn't want to tell them how they're going to do it if they got control of the land, which is interesting to me.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, to me, I guess the easy
Because
out.
they've been claiming they're broke for a while, and they just gave $500 million to Ted.
Right. My guess here is the easy out for them is going to be they don't want the other jurisdictions to see what this breakdown is.
Yes,
either.
that's part. Yeah, that's what they said. Competitive reasons.
Yeah.
They don't want to show Maryland and Virginia what they're planning to do to fund whatever portion, if not all of the stadium,
Correct.
whatever they're planning to try to do if they got the land.
Yeah.
So that Westmore and Glenn Youngkin, if he's still into this, and Louise is like, yeah, baby, try me.
And
so
but
like
this,
whatever.
once again, always gets brought back to my point, and no one wants to yell and scream this that I've been yelling and screaming about for 2 years. We do not know what it's worth to the franchise.
That's right.
They can offer literally less dollars than the other two jurisdictions. I'm not saying significantly, but they can offer less money because they know what that piece of land, what it means to be in the district lines.
They certainly know what it means to the NFL and to this ownership group.
Correct. And so that's what I was going to say is the Commanders themselves, the franchise, the NFL, Raj Goodell in the front office there, they have not played this coyly. They have not kind of
not at
shuffled away from this, trying to play it cool, essentially. They have not. They have, in fact, have just been...
They are a blank check. They pretend they're not, but they can.
Correct.
The NFL can literally do whatever they want to bridge a gap here to make this happen.
Correct.
And Roger Goodell has been the one who said out loud, I want this to happen.
And so I think this is where the district is like, we're not letting you in on this because we know we have just because of the land literally where it's at, we are in a better position than all of you, and we don't want you to see exactly what we are, or really what I think is more importantly, aren't offering them that you guys are going to offer.
And I think also, whatever the offer is, if they get the land, there will be pushback from taxpayers.
Of course.
And there will be pushback from, council members constituents don't want them to do this.
Yep.
So they probably don't want to give them a head start on, that's how you're going to fund it, whatever format they're going to try to do it in and however they're going to try to raise the money. Like they could sit there and pretend, like Ted tried to pretend with Virginia, taxpayers aren't paying anything. Yes, they are. In one way or the other, they are. Of course they are. When the government funds something, where do you think they got the money from?
Right, exactly.
They're not a for-profit business. Like it's taken from tax revenue. So one way or the other, the money gets shuffled around to make it happen. And they wrote a big check to Ted to keep the Wizards and the Capitals at Cap One, albeit, it fell apart in Virginia, but they did. They did do that.
Yep.
And they keep claiming they have no money and that and they always governments cry poor, but whatever. So we'll see what happens there. So I think it's probably two-sided. They don't want the taxpayers to know what they're planning to do.
Yep. Right.
Because then the taxpayers have the ability to go after whatever that is.
Yep. Exactly.
And, or the ones that don't want it. It sounds like if you read all the polling that a lot of people are supportive of it, but it's not going to be unanimous. There's going to be people that are going to push back, and there's going to be council members who hear it from their constituents that say, we actually don't want you to do this, and so they're going to have to take a position to fight it. Well, those people don't know what that is at this point yet. And then there is the other part of this competitive thing with mainly, I think, Maryland at this point.
Yeah.
My gut actually says that Westmore is willing to give more money towards a new stadium because he knows he has to.
Agree. No, I
agree. I don't even know that it's that. maybe he wants to know what the number is so he could just then go, okay, we'll give you $100 million more, $200 million more, $300 million more, and try to entice it so that it's overwhelming.
Right. And well, it's also
they're trying to Dan Hurley, Josh Harris, and go, just don't you want to stay here? Don't you want more money to build what you want to build? And oh, by the way, a lot more land out here, guys, actually.
Well, it's also funny, too. It also looks good. They want to know what's going to happen because politically, Wes Moore can then go, hey, guys, I threw him $250 million more, and they still said no. And at that point, you look, you're all scot-free politically because then everyone knows, you weren't going to get them anyways, but you have to make a conscious effort because if you don't, everyone's going to be like, you just let them go to D.C. for nothing? I mean, yeah, also, while there are all these contingency plans that we already saw, it could go right next to FedEx Field. You could move it down further to the Metro. They've already put it out there that you were clearly planning on doing something if the numbers ended up working out.
Planning on doing it anyway.
Right. And so I think that's what he probably wants is
it's an open secret that if they get the land, this is what they're going to try to do with it.
Yeah, of course.
And then if for some reason the Commanders don't go back to RFK, which would be the surprise of all surprises, but that would probably be based in what the deal is that's in front of them, well, then they at least have the land to do what they want with it, which is, really, to me, the biggest issue with this land anyway. It should be in control of the D.C. government to rebuild it in whatever way they see fit. Currently, it seems like it's a stadium. But we just saw what happened in Virginia. You don't know until you know. Yeah. And let's just say it does fall apart. Maryland does give them a really good plan. They do stay in Maryland, build a new stadium, do something with FedEx Field. And then, well, at least D.C. could make Wharf too.
Right.
They could do something with it.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Or do whatever they want with it.
I mean, every single redevelopment has worked out. Right. So, yes, they would do something with it that would be better than what it is now, which is the, the shell of itself. That's a raccoon den.
The raccoon den.
Apparently.
Yeah.
This is ridiculous.
The R in RFK stands for raccoons. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
So, all right. So that's where that is now. All right. So we'll see what happens over the next couple of weeks. And we'll see if WUSA gets what they're trying to get. Mm-hmm. And I just don't know what standing they have or what the rule. I mean, I feel like anything that's done by the government needs to be part of the Open Records Act. That's just my gut feeling about it. But maybe there are, when it's national security, you understand, but this isn't. This is a tax-funded issue to get a stadium put somewhere. I don't know how they're going to hide that.
It could also be the argument too of we don't have the land yet. If we get we get control of that.
Right.
Then,
you're talking about what ifs.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
The plans we're making are for something we don't have control over. So why do you even need to know?
We don't even have a vote yet.
We can't vote on it.
So
there's nothing to vote on.
Yes, right. So that's the other part of this that they're probably go we're going to keep this as quiet as possible.
I'd sell you this house if it were for sale. That's right. It's not.
Yes, exactly.
The owners are currently not leaving. Senator Daines and company aren't leaving yet. They're refusing to vacate. They're squatting on it. Senator Daines likes the raccoon den. Doesn't want it to go anywhere. Not until he gets that logo back in the store. That's what he wants.
What if there's a fan section at RFK? We call it the Raccoon Den.
The Raccoon Den.
This is rabid fan bases.
The Washington Raccoons.
Washington Rats is probably before
the
Raccoons.
Rats.
Because rats are a little bit more of a problem.
All right, so there's that. Yeah, we'll get if this.
Put an R on the helmet.
I probably should have had Eric on to go. How do you get the records? You would know. I don't. So all right. The other thing happening today is, Hard Knocks is really, they're shifting everything around. So they've got an off-season one with the Giants.
Yes. Yep.
I assume that's coming out soon, right?
It's got to come out. Yeah.
The off-season's over.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So where are the 5-episode run of what happened in the offseason with the Giants? When's that coming out?
Let's see.
They're not practicing again until training camp. And when they get to training camp, Hard Knocks is with the Bears.
July 2nd.
July 2nd, they're going to do what, like a 3-4 episode run, something like that?
Yeah.
Right up to training camp, of which then they'll go straight to the Bears, is what they're doing.
This is your timeline. This is actually tweeted out today by NFL Media. Hard Knocks offseason with the Giants premieres July 2nd. Then Hard Knocks training camp with the Bears premieres August 6th.
Okay, so they got 1 month with the Giants.
Exactly.
Then they'll go straight into actual training camp with the Bears. They'll have been in camp for a week and a half at that point.
Yep,
right?
And then Hard Knocks AFC North will be December 3rd.
That's the other one now. So Hard Knocks AFC North. So the in-season thing, they're not doing one team. This is smart. They're going, you know what? Because they've done this a couple times, and the teams that they had, Arizona and Indianapolis, neither one of them were vying for much.
Yes, exactly.
So now they're like, well, we're going to get one of them.
Yeah, right. You got one
No doubt.
Yes.
We got a no doubter one of them.
Not only that, it's the one division last year where no team died. They were all alive down the stretch.
That's right.
So, I mean.
And in this one, I like this. However, like the deep dive of the team is interesting. They're not going to be able to do that here.
Right.
So
I think what's going to happen.
I don't know what's going to happen.
You know the Hard Knocks formulas, though. They always follow one of the big stars. They follow some
Lamar.
guy. Yeah, they always follow one fringe guy that's, going through it during the season or whatever.
Yeah,
so they're going to pick somebody.
They got great options at quarterback here.
Correct.
They got 4 great options, or potentially 5, depending on fields. Great options at quarterback.
The good part is all 4 of them have really good storylines with their coaches, with
Russ
the quarterbacks.
will happily take part in this, too.
That's right. And there's actual roster discrepancy that could go down as well. And remember, the Steelers, the best part of that, the storyline is when I saw this morning was, remember the Steelers don't play their division until the second half of the season.
Yeah.
It's like if they're in any kind of position, it's going to fall apart.
So that's worked out because actually they're going to be playing each other.
Correct.
They're all going to be playing each other.
Exactly. So that's where I kind of circle and went, okay, all right, we'll see that.
We'll
By the
see
way,
how they do it. I mean, I guess, the quarterback series was very successful, and they followed around a bunch of different people, and they were able to intertwine all of the stories into each hour episode. So I could see this working out for them.
And if not, they'll just do a Mariota. They'll just kind of cut one of the teams out if there's not a good storyline, probably. That was the best part about quarterback was when
because one of these teams is not. I mean, in all likelihood, one of these teams is not going to have a good season.
Right.
I couldn't tell you who at this point, but one of them probably won't.
One thing that just because now I'm reminded of it, the Giants one. So did this cover the last month, or are we covering it from now until July?
No, this was. I think it's already been taped because they're out of the building.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I get the players. The players could go there, but they're not asked to, and everybody's gone.
I'm just gonna say this. I hope there's a Waller episode.
Waller. They actually got some good stories.
And on the field there with him.
Waller.
With the breakup and then the video coming out and then retiring. I hope we get 30 minutes on just Waller alone.
You're going to get a lot of Daniel Jones.
Yes. Yeah.
A ton.
Of course. Yep.
So they're going to try to get, him, and they're going to try to get all the Joe Shane. They're going to try to get the truth tellers on that.
I bet you get a lot on lock. I bet you they're going to try to nudge the league of push this guy for us a little bit so you get to know him a little bit better.
How is this portrayed? That's going to be interesting. Yep. How do they portray this? And then do they do the jersey release and go around New York and ask them about those ridiculous 100-year-old jerseys that they made?
Maybe.
Terrible. All right, we'll take a quick break. Bram watches the show, ESPN 630, Sports Capital. Boston gets a second chance to win the NBA championship tonight. You can hear it right here on ESPN 630 with pregame starting at 7:30, tip around 8:30 tonight. I read something that the police in Boston are closing down the streets around TD Garden after the first quarter because they are anticipating what may happen.
Not a bad idea.
It's actually been, for the Celtics, it's actually been a while since the KG anything is possible year. That's the last time they won. They've been in the finals, but they have not won, so they got an opportunity here, and I do think it will end tonight. I'll talk about it next hour, but I think it'll end tonight. That was very unprofessional the way they played the other night. That was really unusual.
Yeah.
They just totally, it was they gave them a game. It was weird.
It was weird. Their avalanche never happened. I was waiting for their push and it never
materialized.
Came to fruition. Yeah. And I think
maybe they want to win at home. Who knows?
I also think as well, there just became a weighing point there where when do you pull the starters? And when they pulled them in the third quarter, I was like, okay. Yeah, let's get them to rest. Yeah.
I am getting very tired of the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese thing.
Yeah.
It's wearing on me now.
Yeah.
I love that there's a lot of attention on this league. I love this explosion of women's sports. I'm glad to be part of an explosion in women's soccer here locally. I'll talk about the Spirit in a moment because that was unbelievable what happened the other night. But the storylines every week now are about ridiculous fouls.
Yep.
Complaining about the officiating of ridiculous fouls, not explaining themselves very well, one person taking a ridiculous high road, the other people going, I don't want to talk about her, jealousy.
Right.
It's just, guys, first off, that was a really bad foul again. Sure. And I don't even want to hear it that it wasn't. It was. These are high-level athletes that know what they're doing. And she could sit there and claim she went for the ball, and maybe initially she did, and then she just smacked her in the face.
Right, yeah.
Come on. And I'm tired of it. The problem is we're not even, they all want us to talk about the basketball, and nobody can.
Right, correct.
Nobody can because there's an incident in every game. It's an incident.
Yeah. No, with this one, I think you hit it on the head of having one player actually just say, take the higher road, and the other one going not wanting to talk about it. Yeah.
Then she came out today and said, like, well, some people get whistles and I don't. And I'm like, you hit her in the face.
Right. Yeah.
Did you expect them not to call a foul on you?
Right.
Or like you didn't expect the level of foul that you got? That would happen in any game if you punch somebody in the face when they're going up for a layup.
Correct. Exactly.
What do you think?
Yeah.
And then didn't she wear Joker shoes or something like that?
That I don't know. I didn't see that one.
I'm tiring of it. Like,
Well,
you
also
want us to talk about your league and talk about the basketball. Play basketball. Stop having incidents like this.
Well, the other thing is that I hate that it's getting amplified even more because they're both ranked respectively 8th and 9th in the league.
Right.
Like, we're also making, mountain out of molehills, especially because neither team is really that good either. So, like, why are we talking about the 8th and 9th teams? The NBA would never be doing that unless it involved a star, and, it was a legitimate fight. One of these flagrants, though, we're not talking about this afterwards. This reminds me of when, off of the, it wasn't the first time around. It was like the second incident. I forget what exactly happened, but I remember saying to you, like, we're just making too much of all of this. This is another one where when I saw it, I got, oh, God, they're going to blow this up into a way that we don't even need to talk about.
That's their fault, though.
Yeah, sure.
Like, okay, we got your point.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Like, everybody had the argument of, is she being treated differently? And then we had 7 conversations about it and 6 of them didn't matter, but everybody got into it. You would have thought the message got back to the league. It's time to start playing basketball. We're on a pedestal that's different than we've been in the past. Guys, play the game. Respectfully, play the game and play it hard and play it competitively, but just play the game. Let's just stop having incidents like this. And it seems like they just can't at this point. So this is the opposite of, I think, what they're hoping for, unless you just subscribe to all publicity is good publicity, and then, well, they're getting it. And they're in the news cycles, but they're constantly in the news cycles for incidents and not for good play.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean,
I'm tiring of it. I don't even want to talk about it anymore. And I just think they're doing a disservice to themselves by constantly putting themselves in these situations. Take control of your emotions. Play it competitively. Play it hard. Let the chips fall where they may, but stop punching people in the face or cheap shotting her. I don't get it. She feels targeted. I don't understand why. Stop trying to explain to me. I don't get it. I do get it. I've watched sports my whole life. I know what this is. Stop it. It's enough already.
The other half of this, too, though, is, all right, well, Angel, if you want to be the villain, because you've said out loud, maybe I have to be the villain, then okay, then start embracing that even a little bit more. I know you're saying, some players get special calls, but don't make it about her, make it about you. Like, if we're going to do this, be consistent about it, too.
Yes, I know. It's ridiculous. Let's talk about the Spirit for a moment.
Yep.
So they are now unbeaten in 5 straight matches. Mm-hmm. We are 4 for 4 on calls. They haven't lost.
They haven't lost yet.
They came 30 seconds away from it. They got the biggest crowd they've ever had at Audi Field the other night. It was a sellout. It was like 19,500 standing room only tickets remaining. And they had to wait until the final 30 seconds of stoppage time before Casey Kruger made this ridiculous pass into the box that went over the head of a defender of the Wave. And Croy Bethune literally came out of nowhere and like a bullet charged into the box, got a left foot on it, and tied this match. And the looks on the San Diego players' faces was incredible. And I want to give the Spirit a lot of credit because, like, now that we're following them so closely, they were missing 2 of their starters. Andy Sullivan, who plays in every match and is like the stabilizing force of the whole thing.
Yep.
Kate Wiesner is a very good rookie. Had just scored her first ever goal the week before. And then in the first half, Gabby Carl's a very good defender, gets hurt, has to go out. They ended up taking a midfielder, made her a back, right, and switched things around.
Yeah.
And I thought for sure they were going to lose because San Diego was playing better anyway. And this team, I'm telling you, grit, fight, determination was all literally on display. They were completely undermanned. They just wouldn't stop. They kept coming. They kept getting good opportunities, just couldn't find the right combination. And it was a miracle that they scored on at the end of the match. And it was thrilling. It really was. So they get I will point to, if they end up having a special season, just look back to this past weekend, because they had no business tying that team off of the issues they had with their roster, the people they had to move around, but they stuck it out, they played hard, and their star showed up when they needed her to.
No, not only that, they were actually, I thought, the better team throughout the matchup.
They were
too. And they were that shorthanded. Naomi Girma, by the way, I've seen a lot of athletes do a lot of crazy things. That is one of the best defensive efforts I think I might have ever seen in
She
sport.
stopped 3 goals.
Right. And she was also right where she needed to be every single time before the ball was even there or even thought about going where it was. She was amazing. So I want to give her credit there because I was not as familiar with her game. But off of everything that happened and then them scoring in that last second, I don't know. They're just relentless at this point. Because even you and I were talking off the air a little bit of, this is going to be a challenge for them.
It's going to be a tough one.
They were in control for most of the match. I mean, yes, San Diego had their chances, but Spirit were the better team throughout that whole entire matchup. And to get that goal was good. They deserved to have at least one of those goals, if not a couple more.
Trinity Rodman, too, I'm getting to know her more and more and more, just watching her more closely. She's incredible.
Yep, every touch, man.
She's incredible, and she is tough.
Yep.
She's ready to go Angel Reese, Caitlin Clark, and she almost got into it with one of the players. She was demanding. She kept getting fouled. They weren't calling it. She got a yellow card for yelling about not getting a yellow card to the other player. She's tough, and she had a bullet of a shot in the first half that the goalkeeper had to barely punch out of the goal, or that would have been one. Bethune hit one off the post in the first half that would have given them the lead, and I think it would have been a different result. They probably would have won. If either one of those went in, they probably would have won, but they were very gritty. And if there was ever a draw felt like a win, it happened the other night. And I was glad for that crowd, because they had a record crowd, and they were staring down 1-0, and everyone stuck it out, and there it was at the last moment where they scored to tie it. It was great.
The other part of that is, I don't know how the NWSL fines work today, but I follow Trinity on Instagram. I don't know if you follow any of the players, and she posted the picture of her getting fouled and said, I don't know how this wasn't a foul. That was the first story, and then the second story is whoever hit her is her cleat on top of Trin's cleat, zoomed in, to the point where it's blurry.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they do about that in the NWSL. I know if it was the NFL, we'd be talking about a fine today. So she was not,
she was not
shy.
happy.
She's not shy from pointing that out today of what happened.
And she doesn't get pushed around. She pushes back hard.
Correct. No, that's one thing I wanted to say too, was that was a very physical game too. Both sides were going after it, especially the refs. I actually thought really in the second half kind of lost control.
Totally lost control.
For both teams, because I think
at one point Rodman looked at the referee and started counting off the fouls that they didn't call.
Right, exactly. And then I think what happened too is we haven't seen much of this from the Spirit this year. I think once the Spirit kind of knew, the gloves are off, we can do this too.
Yeah.
Fine. And that's what we really saw the last 10, 15 minutes of that match get really chippy from both sides.
I'm very excited this weekend. It's likely we're going to travel to the road match to call it there. So that'll be the first time we'll be on site at a road match when they play Gotham up at the Red Bull Stadium. So I'm excited about that.
One other thing too, Coach Gonzalez, if you haven't seen the video of it, it was really good. It was on Instagram about how he was very proud of them, proud of the effort, but it was really cool. He branched in kind of the crowd too. He goes you guys are playing so well that this many people want to show up to see you guys. And it was just a really good, you and I watch a lot of coaches and across a lot of sports, but it was a really good kind of down the middle line of I'm really proud of you guys. Look at what we've built here. Look at what we're building here. We're not done yet, but really proud of everything that's been done. So.
It was great. All right, we'll take a quick break. Bram wants to show ESPN 630, the Sports Capital. The negotiations for the NBA and their future rights deals got a very interesting twist the other day when Charles Barkley went on NBA TV after the Mavericks beat the Celtics in Game 4 and announced that he's not leaving TNT no matter what, that he has spoken to all of the other networks and he's not going to go anywhere, and that he's going to retire after next year no matter what happens, and this will be his last season on TV, to which I would say I don't believe him.
Okay.
Totally.
I didn't believe him either, and then Schefter started getting involved, and that's when I was like...
What did he say?
Schefter just started relaying the news of just
Yeah, but that's what he said. I mean, he's just relaying what he said on TV.
But it was
live on TV.
It was an amplification that I didn't think was necessary, and it was almost like, Schefter, get this out because it's real. It almost felt like that.
Why Schefter?
I
mean, I know he's done some NBA stuff before.
Right.
He's NBA curious. I know that he is.
He and Woj sometimes cross the streams a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit.
So
I know he's NBA curious. I think He's got the NFL news is like
NBA curious.
Yeah,
It's really funny.
but well, like for someone who lives in like dropping bombs, which he does.
Multiple cell phones, all
the
of it,
Woj bombs are nuclear.
Yeah, right.
The Schefter bombs are big, but those are nuclear.
The cruise missiles,
because
so to speak.
because the stars going somewhere else, it's happening more in the NFL, but in the NBA, it's commonplace. In about 3 weeks, it'll be Woj's world.
Yeah, right.
Because he's gonna drop whatever. Where's Paul George go? James Harden doesn't want to be there anymore. Like, it's going to be nuts. Dame Lillard literally wants out of Milwaukee. Like, it's going to be nuts.
How come we never got ESPN Woj World, a Wayne's World spoof on like
Woj's
state,
World?
Yeah, state
Woj's
television.
World.
Yeah, Woj's World.
Woj's World. Party time. Excellent.
It's just him in a basement in Connecticut.
Who's his Garth?
On CCTV.
Who's his Garth?
Oh, that's a good question. If he wasn't involved with the news, JJ Redick, I think would be a good one. Would be a good one, but I think he's like he's a little too big now.
Well, I think the funny one would be he's sitting there and then he gets hired by the Lakers and he leaves.
Yeah, he just gets up and walks out.
I got news about you.
Yeah. Right. Hey, JJ, you need to leave. Yeah. You just got hired.
I think, when you say you're going to retire in a year, it gives you a long time to then rethink that. And let's see where this goes. I believe him on the part, I don't want to leave this group. And I said this initially when TNT looked like they were heading towards losing the rights entirely. Everybody, of course, is going to want to try to get him because he's great TV.
Sure.
But he's great TV on that show.
Yes, exactly.
And I don't know, like, if you stick him on the desk with Stephen A. Smith, they're going to be fighting for airtime with one another. I don't know if the jokes are going to land.
Yep.
And the chemistry matters here. And they've got great chemistry on that show. And you can't just take him, put him somewhere else, and assume that it's going to be great, even if it's the same sport. Like, he tried to do something on CNN with Gayle King. That did not fly. So a news forum with him, and Gayle King also isn't going to be yucking it up with him. That just didn't work. I wasn't surprised that didn't work, but that didn't work. Him staying on the NBA makes all the sense in the world. But when you just shove him on another set with different people, is it going to be the same? Probably not.
Right.
So I think he has enough self-awareness to go, you know what? I don't want to go somewhere else, have it not be what it is, and then people remember me for it just didn't land right or the chemistry wasn't there.
Yeah.
Those guys all literally seem like friends.
No, I was going to say there's multiple layers here that I think you should unpack on it. One, Barkley's 61. I'm not saying like that's old by any means. But
he hasn't lost his fastball at all.
But I will say maybe he's even thinking you know what? I don't know how long I want to do this anyways. I don't want to go to a new place and then leave 3 or 4 years later.
Right.
Maybe just leaving is the very convenient part about all of this. The other thing is, to your point, if it goes somewhere else, they are always right on the line of political correctness, essentially. Yeah. They overstep it by a tiny bit every once in a while, but a lot of times between them, though, what is just as important as the ball busting between them is that they all can accept it from each other.
That's right.
If you bring in, or if you go somewhere else like Stephen A., he's not going to put up with that. He's not going to play ball. That's the best part
He's
about
not going to play ball, especially if you challenge him,
Correct.
Which we've learned over the last, couple of years. If you challenge him, he off with your head.
Yes, and so that's what
is Monica McNutt going to ever be on that show again because she challenged him?
Right.
I saw her on the Daily Show with Jon Stewart, and she said 2 things. She said one, I'm here because of Caitlin Clark, so I appreciate that. That's what's going on here. That's why we're having this conversation. And she goes 2. I overestimated the depth of my relationship with him. I thought I was able to challenge him, and I found out that I can't.
Got it. So there you go.
And Barkley's as big or bigger than Stephen A. And that's another problem with ESPN.
Yep.
Stephen A. does not want to be on a set with anybody that's bigger than him.
Right. All 4
of
those.
And he's the one that can fire back at him, and the fans will be like, yep. And then Stephen A. is going to get mad, and there's actually nothing he can do about that.
I would say not even him. All 4 of them could. I think they have a higher standing because it's a different audience.
Everyone kowtows to Stephen A. because he's powerful there.
Right.
And he will out you hard publicly.
Right.
And we've seen what's happened through the years. Obviously, Max Kellerman, breaking that up it ended up, Stephen A. was right about that. They've done better,
Correct,
ratings-wise, they've actually done better. So they were right about that. But part of it was, I'm not going to have some guy challenge me every day.
Right. Yeah,
it's not the way it's going to be.
Yep.
Shannon Sharp comes on there, and they're more agreeable to one another, really. Mm-hmm. They kind of team up on people more than it. They'll argue, but like they argue in the way that you argue where it's not, where you have to get defensive with one
Well, I think
another.
at least with Shannon, I don't know if they did this before they hired him or what. Shannon doesn't have to take the ridiculous side sometimes and does agree with them sometimes. Whereas I think Max went full wrestling and went, okay, fine, you're going to take that angle. I'll take the other angle and we'll butt heads about it. Even though, that leads to funny clips of like, I'm going to take Iguodala. And everyone's like, come on, man.
I think Stephen A. and Barkley are very different personalities too.
Correct.
Stephen A. wants you to respect him, wants to be the star, tells his producers, take clips of me walking in pregame,
so
before I take my courtside seat. I can't even believe they appease him on that because it's like so many times I'm like, the players and the teams are the stars here. Like, come on. Like, he has no bearing on the outcome of this. And aren't you showing the highest level of the sport? Like, why are you doing that? Barkley never does things like that. Barkley is the star, obviously, of that show and that network, especially of their sports coverage. But he doesn't act like it. He doesn't demand it. He's not like, give me the solo shot so I can do this. Don't show me walking in here. He's kind of he understands who he is, but he's kind of the lovable star of the whole thing. Relatable.
Yep.
And Stephen A's not relatable.
Yes.
He's not.
Well, and I also think.
Not in that way.
I think,
he's very good at he's incredible at what he does.
Sure.
But it's not a relatable thing. He's like, I am the voice of God. Barkley's like, I'm just going to tell you how it is, and you just tell me if you agree with me or not. And if you don't, I'll just laugh it off anyway. I don't care.
I think the biggest.
That's not Stephen A. Stephen A., you challenge whatever his position is. Well, now you can't sit in the same room with him because he has to be right.
Correct. It's very rigid.
Yes.
And that's ESPN in general. But like, I would say that show won't slot in. Like, no. I think you can agree with me here. Like, I say this to people all the time when they ask me about being the Caps producer, and I go, I love our broadcast because John Walton keeps it lighthearted, right? It's the vibe of the whole broadcast is thrown that way, right? And I think that's that show. It's not just them; it's the production crew. You hear them cracking up in the background when Charles says something and Shaq looks over at them. They all start cracking up because they're all looking.
They would ever do some crazy graphic of Stephen A. in some put his head on some kind of weird body?
No,
of course not.
And so that's the other problem here is like the whole vibe is not just the four guys there; it's the crew around them too. A lot of times,
the whole thing they're having fun,
and like there's
nobody's taking themselves too seriously.
Correct.
There.
Like you see Shaq and Chuck go throw into a Christmas tree, around Christmas time when they did that bit, like. You're just not ever going to get with some of that stuff because not only is it not Stephen A., ESPN is so rigid that production crew ain't going to play that game either.
And Barkley, forget all the car wash stuff. He ain't doing that, right? That's number one. But so forget that part of it.
Chance.
But even then, he's criticized them for being you guys are focused on the wrong things. Yeah. He has said it out loud.
Yes.
He's like, every night, your whole show is the Lakers and the Warriors. Neither one of them have a chance to win the title. What are you doing?
That's right. Yep.
It's like you're not even really following this.
Right. They also
he's not going to engage in that. What's LeBron do? What's his legacy?
Right.
Barkley's not having those dumb conversations. He's not engaging in anything like that.
They also tell it like it is in a different way that ESPN never will. Where I think was it Shaq? It was either Shaq or Chuck when they were like, oh, what are we talking about the Wizards for? We haven't seen a Wizards game in 4 years or something like that. ESPN would never go that route because they keep everyone kind of safe. It doesn't matter.
No.
And they know they might talk about it eventually. But I like how they always just call it like it is on that end of the spectrum, too, of why are we talking about them? We don't need to talk about them because you don't. You actually don't. And
remember Shaq? We played that one clip once. He's like, I haven't watched them play in 5 years.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you?
Correct. And that's
if you're them, why would you?
Sometimes you need some of that, but ESPN will never allow that.
Yeah,
so.
and also there's a difference here too, and it's an interesting one. ESPN, I think, is beholden to the league in a way that TNT isn't. That show does what they want. They will say things like that you would think most, Adam Silver hearing them saying, I've never watched the Wizards, would make him go, oh, God. If ESPN said that, I think they would give him a harder time about it. And ESPN is very sensitive to those relationships with the league in a way that TNT with that show isn't.
That's right.
They're given a leeway that is way, and I think that's why people like it. They're being real.
Well, because
they're being real.
It's one show, too. So they know, okay, this one show's out of hand, fine. But if ESPN does that, and one show starts doing that, they're all going to start doing it. And they know they can't let that thread get out of control.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. They have a very loose show. They say what they want, but they don't go down the dumb conversation path.
Right.
The A block isn't is Kevin Durant the right fit for Phoenix?
Right.
Or like, what is LeBron's legacy today?
Yeah.
Like,
Right,
like
yes.
they don't do that. They don't get into that. They like take it as it comes and they react to it and they have great chemistry. And that's why I think Barkley on ESPN doesn't work, because he's going to be with Stephen A. and they're not going to have that chemistry. And Stephen A. takes himself way too seriously to pull that off with somebody who wants it to be loose and let's just have a good time. And Stephen A., he's humorless that way. It's not going to work.
The other part is you need Chuck to react to games live or right after them. And he can't do the car wash stuff like that either, because he needs something to react off of and not get into arguments. There's no way.
He also, Stephen A. becomes a fan of the Knicks.
Yes. Yes.
He's not going to do that. He's never done that. He never does that, right? He never does that. So I never thought ESPN was the right fit for him, because you're going to have to work with Stephen A. And I actually bet Stephen A. doesn't want him because Barkley's too big for him.
Correct. Yep. Exactly.
He can't browbeat Charles Barkley.
Right. It's a different crowd, too. It brings you in a different audience.
That's right.
That doesn't like him. So you're going to bring in the audience that already doesn't like you.
So that's a bad, I'm sure ESPN would love him, but it's a bad mix. So they're better off.
Right.
So where else is it going to go? Amazon, right? They're going to get it.
Yep.
Okay. Who's he going to be on TV with?
Right. Yeah.
Ernie already said he's not going anywhere, because Ernie does a lot of stuff there. He's been there forever, and I understand he probably lives in Atlanta. He doesn't want to leave.
Right. Exactly.
He don't want to leave.
Right.
So he's got issues. His kid's been sick a long time, so he's not going to go anywhere. Like he's not leaving, and so he's going to go somewhere else, and they're going to be with a new host they're going to try to yuck it up with him purposefully.
Yep.
It's not going to be natural. He's going to be on TV with who knows? Will they regenerate the chemistry? No. So I think Chuck saying I will retire after next year is a shot to and actually a major self-awareness of, I'm really good here.
Yeah.
And I know how good I have it. And I'm not going to keep doing this for money and not do the show that I like.
Yep. Well, I think what
He
happens.
genuinely likes doing
That's
that
what I was
show.
gonna say. Yeah.
That's what's clear about it. And he doesn't know whether he would genuinely like doing it in another place with a whole other set of people. And I think that takes a level of self-awareness for someone as popular as he is to go, you know what? I don't need to do this anymore if it's going to not be fun.
That's right. Exactly.
And so I appreciate that he said it. Now, on the am I retiring? I've heard this before from a lot of people. When they say I'm going to retire in a year, they often don't. So let's see how the negotiations go.
Sure.
And I do think this is the best thing to happen to TNT's position, is him saying, I'm going to go. Because I think the NBA, I know the NBA has to know that show means something for them.
Right.
And it's a leverage point for TNT to go, you're going to lose one of the best things that you have in and around this. And if you don't bring it back, like, he's clearly going to retire.
That's right.
But if you do, maybe we can talk to him.
That's right.
Because TNT was asked to give a statement after this. I think they were surprised, and their statement was succinct, and they described him as a beloved member of the TNT sports family.
Of course.
And, quote, we look forward to another fantastic NBA on TNT season and further discussion of our future plans with him.
There you go.
This was a smart move. This is why they're not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
They're not, they probably are, but they're not, they're sitting where I'm sitting going, it's 12 months from now. We actually don't know what's going to happen. If we do get the rights back in whatever package that is, I'm sure we can talk to him and probably give him whatever he needs to make him happy and keep doing this. He did say something else that I thought was very important, and I thought this was really great of Barkley to say this out loud. He said, to the folks at Turner Sports, I apologize that this has been a prolonged process because I know they're committed to their jobs. It's a large part of their identity and their family's identity, and no one likes this uncertainty. I think it's on the league office to bring these negotiations to a head and conclude them as quickly as we can. So this is another reason why I think he's inserting himself. Remember, he yelled about the executives and said, the executives are blowing this, right? You guys are killing the golden goose over here. Why would you not want to have the NBA, especially with this show and what we do for that league? And of course, the NBA likes what they get here, but you're blowing it over money. shut up and get it done. And I think what he did was, I'm going to be the executive here, and I'm going to step up, and I'm going to say something the NBA doesn't like to make them at least conclude this, because I appreciate, and that's true, you can just see it in the show that they make. Those people that work on that show and that sport love it.
Yep.
And they're devastated that they're going to lose it.
Yeah.
They're all going to lose their jobs. They're going to be hard-pressed to replicate it. At times, this has happened in the past, like when Monday Night Football became basically Sunday Night Football, where the best game of the week went to Sunday Night Football.
Yeah.
Fred Gaudelli and all of the people that used to do Monday Night Football went to Sunday Night Football because it was the premier spot. Not that Monday Night Football is not a big deal, but it's not as big as the Sunday night package, right?
Exactly.
Well, they did. Everyone seems to think that if the NBA goes somewhere else, they'll just transfer inside the NBA and those people will go over there. That's not going to happen.
Yeah, not the case at all.
So all these people that have put their heart and soul into doing NBA coverage and look at the result that they've had, I think what Barkley did was leadership personified. He's standing up for his organization. He's standing up for the people he works with, and he's standing up for himself in a self-awareness way that is unusual for someone of his stature. And he's saying, you executives are blowing this. I'm going to show you how to get this done. And it may be too late, and they may not be able to do anything about it. But I actually think he's taken a last stand, and it's impressive that he's doing what it seems like his executives have failed to do to understand where they are in this. They're allowing bottom line numbers to get in the way of blowing something that's special in sports. And I'm Team Charles here, and I hope it works out for them.
I wonder, too, if they could come up with some kind of solution that maybe they don't need a game package, too. Like, that this might force their hand to try to figure out. Like,
it's hard, though.
I've even said, though, like...
In and around the games and the highlights is what kind of matters.
Well, I was going to say, like, can they actually get away with saying not this one specific game, but here's, like, a night where we've got 4 or 5 games going on and we'll jump around a little bit so you're not ruining somebody's TV rights or jumping into somebody.
That's what NBA TV does.
Yeah, so like,
that's what they do.
Like, you could do something like
just
that.
Post it to TNT, allow them to do that.
Right, and I hate to say it like this.
One night is TNT night?
Yeah, and I hate to say it like Red Zone, but like that's what you could do because it's so casual and there's so much downtime. And then when things get to the fourth quarter, then you have to kind of pick and choose.
Just the hard part is like there are premier matchups on TNT.
Yeah,
they're in and around these premier matchups. If you're doing that, if you red zone it, will it have the same effect? And they're now popping around to different games and I don't know.
Well, the other part of that, too, is then Amazon or whoever else has the rights is going, well, you're not using our game for that because we want people to tune into our stream to finish watching that game. So you run into a problem there. So you'd have to pick nights where those games aren't on. But like you tell me during the NBA season when there's not at least one game somewhere for you to watch, it's almost every single night. So.
The other thing with him, and this is why I don't totally believe it, I actually believe it if TNT loses it entirely, that he will step away. But, like, if they don't, I think he'll come back.
Yeah.
Because, I watch, people of this stature, they always have a million opportunities in front of them. Well, he doesn't seem eager to typically do anything else, actually.
Yeah, sure.
Like, in the case of Mark Cuban, it made sense to me that he sold off the majority of the Mavericks because he's not as locked in as he used to be.
Sure.
He's doing Shark Tank. He might run for president. Like, that's obvious. He's, like, interested in something like that. He's doing all these million different things. Like, it's just not the same for him. Like, he did what he wanted to do. He built that thing up. They won a championship. They were really good this year. He made a lot of money because he sold it to the right people. And he goes, you know what? I'm going to walk away. And he's going to do something else. What do you hear Barkley ever angling to try to do that's different than this? Nothing. So, like, he's just going to go back into the woodwork and probably be like a guest. He'll show up on people's shows and still talk about basketball. So that's why I totally don't believe him either. Because if he was always sitting there and you hear, Charles Barkley actually does want to run for governor of Alabama or actually does really want to do something in some other realm or actually, but you never hear that about him. And that's why I don't totally believe him either. But I think if TNT loses it, I'll take him at face value that he's going to walk. But if TNT can get a package back, and I think the NBA should figure something out here, even if it's a limited package, to keep this together.
Yes.
Yeah. They're so good. It's the best studio show.
Well,
it's an incredible extension of their brand. They go viral for their clips. Why would you lose that?
Correct. The other thing is I don't think you're going to get a factor of those 4 in that aren't just trying to like make a name for themselves or make a hot take so they get talked about. Like Ernie is clearly the straight and narrow host, but he's also really funny when he has to be. Shaq
Ernie is underrated at how good he
correct,
is. Correct,
but everyone realizes that too,
yes.
though. It's like what? It's like he's underrated, but everyone knows he's
There's
underrated.
There's a massive skill keeping something like that
yes.
on track and actually being part of the crew
yes.
and not be the guy who's just on the side going, "Tell me something funny, Chuck."
Right, not like Molly. Like, unfortunately, Molly, because she is so much smaller than Stephen A., like, she just has to kind of
She's
keep
not
it
part
moving.
of the gang.
Yes.
She's even said out loud a couple times, "I have to do my job,
yes,
guys."
Correct, exactly.
Like,
but so that's what Ernie does. But then Shaq doesn't have to work. Shaq's so freaking rich. He doesn't have to do any of that either. And I think Chuck's falling into the same thing where he's going, I don't want to do this if I don't have fun. So
Shaq and Chuck like it.
Yes.
That's why they're there.
That's why they're there. Yes, exactly.
They're there because they like it.
Right. And then
they're not vying to get on someone else's channel. They're not vying to argue with Stephen A.
Yes.
They don't want to do the car wash. They don't want to be on SportsCenter 5 times a day. They don't want to do that.
And then I think like the underrated factor with Kenny is Kenny's perfectly fine being the third kind of mic there between those two players. And
he's the one that's actually watching the games and paying attention.
Yes, but he's still the
They
third.
need somebody there to actually watching the games and breaking it down.
but the thing with that with Kenny too though is there's not a lot of people that like this in this business that are willing to just be I'm the third mic and I'm gonna watch all these games and I know I'm the third person behind these other two huge, literally huge figures.
That's right. They've got an incredible thing. They're about to blow it. It stinks. I appreciate that Barkley went, you know what? If I'm not going to have fun and I know I'm not going to have fun at these other things, I'd rather just not do it.